Alrighty, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the reduced as staked fieldwork sort of presentation. My name's Peter and I will be sort of running you through a bit of the sort of how to bring in some geospatial survey stakeout data. Just for, I think most everybody's been muted in the conversation, but if you've got any questions or anything as we go along, feel free to send us an IM, and my email address and our phone numbers will be presented at the end of this. So if you've got any questions or anything, you can sort of give us a call and sort of work through work through your questions. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at how to import data from your total station into TBC, and then viewing that staked out information, looking at the delta values against the design points that you would have uploaded when you went out into the field. So it's just a bit of a run through how it sort of would be done. This is one workflow, so obviously it's not the best, and there's multiple different ways of doing it. And then probably at the end of it, we might show you sort of how to present it with some text, some information, some point labeling, and then maybe throw it up into a plan sheet to see what that looks like. Okay, so TBC, when we load data in, obviously we can import any form of .jxl, .job, and alike. But what I'm going to do is this data set I actually did and linked it up to Trimble Connect. So we're going to bring it in through Trimble Sync Manager. So just for those that you who weren't present at the communication to and from the field the other day, so TSM, Trimble Sync Manager, you're able to upload your data using your Trimble ID and be able to download it and send it straight to TBC from the field. So what I'll do, I'll bring TBC up and then TSM on top of it. So this is our survey or our design data that we were to go and set out some sports fields. I'll turn the surface off. So there's our sports fields. We're asked to go and set out the corners to about 25-30 mil. So we're placing dumpy stakes just to sort of show where the corner should be for some line markings. At the same time, we did a little bit of a rough design stakeout to sort of see how everything would present when we bring it back into TBC. So when you look at TSM, you have the ability to view your data, and this is what's presenting here. So what the link files are, and then if I scroll up, we have the job file. Obviously, the day I created it, which was back in the 7th of November, and then obviously today's date is the date was last modified. And what we're going to do, you can download the data from this and store it as a JXL, and then drag and drop it into TBC, or in this case, you can just import straight to TBC from TSM. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and a notification will come up in TBC asking what would you like to do. Would you like to import it? Yes, no. We're going to go ahead and import the data into TBC. So standard request screen or projection definition will come up to provide some information whether or not you want it on scale factor. When, for instance, if you just want it on ground scale factor, or if there's a grid scale factor you're working on for the project, this is a place where you can edit it. This information is pulled from the .job or .jxl when the file is imported. So you can edit it now, and it'll be stored against your JXL, or just leave it as is, and that's what we used from the field. So I click OK, import the data. And you'll see that it shows that it's finished. We close this process view, and we'll see that we have a whole bunch of new points that have arrived on the screen. So a red flag, or it's a bit of an orange flag, is an as staked point, and the as staked points are shown up in your Project Explorer. So it's not a class as a point; it has its own definition as being an as staked point. Click the wrong one. As staked point, and these are the points that we set out, and then underneath each one of these is obviously the vector information from the total station. The for the process of this, I have turned off most of the other views and raw data information. So if I turn on total station, obviously I've turned off all the total station observations, so we don't really need them. So it's not something we want to look at. Now, down the bottom of the screen, we have our flag pane. Now the flag pane can be found in the bottom right hand corner. You can just find your flag, you can turn it on and off. This will show you when certain errors and things, and this is based against, and these errors are based against the settings that you set in your project settings. So in this case, with all those previously been set a 25mm horizontal tolerance for all points and as staked points when it came in. And so in this case, there's two that sit outside that one that's at 92mm, obviously a blunder, and then one at 26, which is obviously a little bit rough when it happened. So I'll just show you where you go. So have a bit of a look at that. So on your quick access toolbar, up in the top left-hand corner, we're going to go to project settings, and we are going to go and have a bit of a look at computations, as staked points, and this will be where you find your tolerances. So we can blow this out, say 27mm in this case, and do we want to test it against the vertical? Yes or no? No, we don't, because the verticals are all wayward. I made sure that they were all a bit iffy, just so I could show you something else in one of the next steps. If you click OK, that other point has now disappeared. The flag's disappeared, and there's still one that's there. So that's the flags. Now, when data gets brought into TBC straight from a JXL, the points are actually stored in the points layer. So if I isolate your layers and then go to points, you'll see that all these points have just been imported, and they're just sitting here under points. Now, sources for courses and how people want to do this. Some people prefer to keep them in there. Some people like to segregate them out and to throw them somewhere else. I myself love to keep things in different layers and related to different days, and so that I know when it was done and who did it and so on and so forth. So I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to rename and relayer all those objects. And recently I found a really nifty little command in TBC which will allow me to do that in one swift hit, and it's called relayer objects. Now you can, if you wanted to, select all those objects and go through and change them in your properties over here under points, vice versa, but this new command allows me to create a shortcut to be able to do it in one easy swift hit, and you can do it to multiple things and vice versa. So one way to find it, and for those who weren't at this morning's session about data prep, you're able to find this through your command pane. Now command pane is located in your quick access toolbar, or if you wanted to, you can press F12 and that'll come up with a command pane. And what we want to look for is relayer. So if we type relayer in, you'll find that there's two little up here, relayer by feature codes and relayer by objects. So we're going to do relayer objects. You can select a target, and in this case we'll create a new one, and I'll create a as staked layer, and it will be today's, or the date that the survey was done, 14 SA. I'm going to give it a color of red so it stands out because it's set out. We can give it some other grouping information as well. So there's already groups set up for this as staked. You can set priority and how it's to be displayed on the screen in relation to all the other data that's presented. So in this case, I want this to be in the foreground because it'll be up against some other set out information or some other design information when we look at that later on. Okay, so there's my layer. It's good to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a couple of points for this exercise. Just a couple up the top left-hand corner. So 3 objects, and I'm going to click OK. And what it's done is it's now thrown those into a brand new layer in as staked here, where I've created those 3. Now, I can go back through, type that command back in to relay, or go to recent commands and go through that, or I can go and create a shortcut. And in this case, I'll show you how to do that quickly. So quick shortcut, define commands, and we're going to go looking quickly and look for relayer objects. And relayer objects, and then we can assign a shortcut to it. In this case, I've created Control L being my shortcut. So if I go back to my points, now just a quick note, if you use this command again, straight after using it, it will actually hold that layer that you preset before. So if I select, again, 3 points and go Control L, it'll automatically throw those 3 points into that layer, making it nice and easy to sort of get around. So it's something that you can use not just for this, but for other things as well. I just thought I'd throw that in there for today's little exercise. So I'll just throw all this stuff into the one layer, and there it is. Everything's now in as staked from today. All right. So there's our data. We now want to go and have a look and see how good our surveyor actually was, or how good I was when I did the survey. So we'll want to look at this as a report form. You can go in a couple of other spaces and sort of look at some data if you wanted to go through Total Station Editor and look at the observations stored, but it's actually much easier to go through your reports. So in the, again, quick access toolbar, there's just between the printer and the edit button, there's a reports tab. Click on the drop down and there's a whole bunch of reports listed in here. If we go to more reports, new dialog will pop up, and then we can view an as staked report and look at all the points that were as staked. So I'll wait for this to load. All right, so we've brought up the as staked report, header, a whole bunch of information. If we had a coordinate system, all that'll be listed in there. These descriptions and comments and reference information is set up in your project settings if you ever wanted to do that. That's something to might be of interest. Because we're not looking at a horizontal tolerance, vertical tolerance, sorry, nothing's presented here, but obviously our 27 millimeters is being shown there. And then at the same time, it's also showing all our other information from the stakeout. So design easting, design northing, your design elevation. In this case, for most of the survey, I actually entered this into the survey so that I wasn't measuring against a TTM or anything like that. And then obviously provide your deltas and then your cut and fill relative to that design elevations there. So this is our wayward point. It also looks like we've miscoded it in the field as well. So one way of going through and sort of editing it is we can throw this across to the other side and have 2 concurrent views running. We can click point 1512 and it'll zoom in and highlight that point for us. We can then have a look and, okay, well, there is a feature code that's wrong. It was a dumpy, so I can recode my dumpy point. What am I going to do about it being 90 mil out? I can look at disabling the point, or I can then offset it, for instance, to the line and do a couple of other different ways of doing that in drafting. So that, go through and sort of edit anything other blunders or anything else that we need to look at in here. I think there's 1512 and 1507 as well. So if I click 1507 and zoom out 1507, no, where's 1507? There you are. And then 1507 also has another bung point, so just edit that and done. Okay, so that's a report. You can save that. You can export it out as PDF, Word, whatever you want. You can dress it up to however you would like it to be presented. If that's something that you want to keep for your QA process, that's really up to you. So I'm going to close that now. Don't really need to look at it anymore. So we have our points, and we've had a look at our reports, and probably the next best thing is to see how we go with doing a little bit of drafting and sort of turn this into an actual usable plan. So these points that are presented on the screen, we can leave them as date points. You can also convert them across if you wanted to change them into normal points, but it's, again, horses for courses. I myself just leave them as an as date point. Some people like to change them, transfer them over, and remove the linkage and all sorts of things, but I think in this case I'll just leave it all as is. So we want to present, obviously, a set out sketch, and in the set out sketch we have a circle for the symbol and some text, so probably a code and an elevation that was stored at the time. So this is done through your drafting tab, and you can go through and pre-set up in your templates, and I'm sure there's a video floating around from the last couple of weeks on creation of templates and text styles and drafting and so on and so forth, but this would be another quickie to have a bit of a squeeze at. So in our label style manager, this is how we would go about setting up our label styles for any of our points, lines and polygons. For our point style, I've already created one called as staked, and it's embedded into the template. As staked, and as to what layer it's to be presented in. So for instance, we can change that to layer is to go into today's date, or into the survey layer. I've also created a symbol, just a circle, to be presented in red, point feature code, and then just an RL that's sort of added in there as well. So we can isolate out our data if you really want to sort of view it and physically, for instance, select the whole bunch and go and click point label and add a point label style for these points. Now, when you go through and point label style, you can click drop down, you can choose which one you want. So I'm going to get staked, it automatically pre-filled the layer. There's 9 points selected, and I click add, and it goes through and converts those points into symbols that can then be used on our plan. So at the moment, I've got this text style set up so that the points will be, or the text will be set to 2.5 millimeters on the plan sheet. So this text will vary depending upon the scale preset in my project settings. So I think at the moment it's set to about 600, and I'll go back through in a minute and I'll change that down to, once I've looked at what scale I probably will get my plan sheet at. Going back to labeling points, once you can just physically go through and just select one at a time if you wanted to, and go about that, or you can just select all of them and convert them all into one. So there we go. All of our text has been presented on the plan. We unisolate our layers. There's our sports fields. Let's go and have a quick look at our settings for our scale. So we go project settings and have a quick squeeze. We go to view and into plan views. Plan views is where if you're creating a plan view sheet, the plan view plot scale will be what this is based off. So if you are using a cross-section view will have a different scale, and you can preset that in here as well. But just for this, we're doing a plan view, and I'm going to set it to about 200 because I'm going to present it on about an A1 sheet. And that'll automatically change my text and my symbol size as well relative to the sheet. So if you've got these things set up already in your FXL or in your template, a lot of the times you can just quickly drag and drop your stake data in, have it up, and then quickly output it to your sheet, and then send it out to the to either off to drafting if you really want to do that, or if you've got your plan sets set up correctly with all your title block and all your disclaimers and everything pre-done, then all you've got to do then is just go straight to plan sheets, print a PDF, send to the customer. So let's go and quickly throw it and show you how easy it is to throw it to a sheet. We're going to go straight to a drafting template. So I'm just going to use an A1 plan set. that comes vanilla with TBC, and you drag and drop it into your plan view. Again, this can be preset, already part of your template, and it will be presented and part of your plan sets in your Project Explorer. So I will have a quick squiz at some information that's already preset in these plans. So if I right click on this and I want to look at a new sheet view, this is the Trimble plan that comes with the TBC. You can go through and edit a lot of this information. A lot of this is smart text, and I'm sure that'll be covered in another drafting seminar at some other stage. And the smart text can be pulled again from your project settings, and all this is creatable straight from your project settings. You don't have to pre-fill any of this. You can have it done in your project settings and then send straight to plan set. But on the top right hand corner, we have some information that we need for creating our Dyna views and sending our data. So Dyna views is very similar to a viewport in AutoCAD and the Autodesk world. So in the Dyna view here, we will have this information and it'll help us create our Dyna view and then place it on the sheet when we go and place it. So we want to make sure that it's 681 by 554 is the Dyna view size, and then we're going to place it at those coordinates when we from the bottom left hand corner when we import the Dyna view. So I can close that now, don't really care about that anymore. Let's go back to drafting, and we're going to create a Dyna view collection. I'm going to call it as staked. Oh, help if I can type. As staked. Now our page width, that's those numbers that we were looking at before, the 681 by 554. So we then change this to 681 and 554. Plot scale. Now, plot scale again gets pulled straight from your project settings and is pre-filled, and that's set in there. Now we can change the number of Dyna views or views sheets that we have. In this case, I only want one, so I've set it by 1 by 1. You can have it as a 2 by 2, and it'll create 2 by 2 with overlap of 20 mil as a column, but or have 2 columns and 1 row. But I'll just have it set to 1. That's all I need for this job. Don't really care about anything else here. And then when you load in your plan set, there's a whole bunch of layers that are automatically brought in with all that information as well. So these here are all the plan set layers when they get imported, and we can then assign them to, for instance, the Dyna view box. Now, the first sheet, origin, that'll be the placement of the position of your Dyna view. So for instance, I'm going to place it like that, and you can rotate your Dyna view as need be. You can enter a value, so you can add, for instance, 45 degrees, negative 45, however you want to rotate it. And remember that value for when you import things like your north point and other text, that if you want to, all the symbols and whatever else, you can apply that across the board. If you've got other blocks and things that need to come in. But for this case, it's just going to be set at rotation of 0. So I click apply, and then I'm going to close that. So this box is created. The box itself is again thrown into its sheet Dyna view layer. You can switch all that off so you don't have to see it later on. And then in your groupings, you can set your groupings and internally groupings for sheets and that sort of stuff off as needed. And you can, if you really wanted to, change your Dyna view relative to what day you're doing, what survey, and so on and so forth. Okay, now we're going to go and create our sheet sets. Now, if we go to create sheet sets, we click the drop down. When we imported that plan set, A1 plan set, 2 sheet sets brought in, metric master sheet and a plan set 1. I'll use that plan set A1. I'm going to call my new set as staked, and it's going to be 191014 set out. My actual sheet set type will give us a definition of, do we want it to be a plan grid, do we want profile, custom? So we want it to be plan grid, so plan as in top down, looking at the horizontal plane. Orientation, we want it to be in landscape. And then this is where we have our sheet width information. I'll just leave that as is. And then here we have our offsets. So those offsets were the values 40 and 20, which are those coordinates for the dyno view placement. Now the view filter. Now your view filter at the moment, or the view filter at the moment, is set to my filter. So if I select all, it'll show everything that I've got in there. So I don't really want to see everything. I want to make sure that my view filter is set to my filter, and I've cleaned it back. You can save and create view filters for a day as well. So for instance, I'm creating this today. I would create a new view filter of today's date, and this is a set out plan, and then you've always got that in there that you can refer back to and turn on those layers if you've got to make any edits to a plan or something like that. So I'm going to drop that down to my filter, and then I'm going to click OK. And sheet width 681 by 554, and then click OK. If I go back to my Project Explorer, I'll have a new sheet set that's been created, with sheet 1 being the one sheet that was set in when I did the original dyno view. So I want to view that, go new sheet view, and there we have it. Our sheet view set up in our title block. Again, none of that information is pre-filled because I don't actually have anything set up in my Project Explorer. But say I did, I could pre-do project number, description, drawings, and so on and so forth. And then you can import other blocks and whatever else. For this, you can export this straight to a PDF, straight from here, and then have that presented however you want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw over to the floor and ask anybody if there's any questions you might have related to this, and see any thoughts and go from there. I'll just go to... Okay, so I've unmuted everybody. If there's any questions or anything, please feel free to throw it out there. And if there's any comments, there's currently no comments in the conversation. So has anybody got any questions related to that? Any thoughts? No? Oh, thanks for that, Mick. Alrighty. What we'll do, again, I'll leave my contact details up there on the screen. You can give us a call, 1-800-800-UPG, and get through to one of our technical consultants if you've got questions regarding to TBC, Trimble Access, or any of the hardware. And if you're a SITECH user, feel free to give us a call anyway. On how to sort of use TBC and the as-state workflow related to that. Anyone? Any other questions? No. Alrighty, we'll leave it there, and hope everyone has a good afternoon, good evening.